Willie Fritz is definitely cooking something down there in Houston, but Baylor has a player that all of H-Town is worried about in Saturday's game. We'll tell you who that is when we get Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Bears fans, Cougs fans, haters from around the country. It is the Locked On Baylor, Locked On Cougs crossover ahead of Baylor and Houston this Saturday. It's brought to you by FanDuel. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I'm Kim Stewart from Locked On Baylor. Parker Ainsworth from Locked On Cougs. He has got his Love Ya Cougar Blue ready to go, and we are about to break down what has to be one of the biggest games in the nation this weekend.
Exactly. And you said haters from around the country. I feel like we could go international with that, Cam.
Honestly, I've looked at the analytics on YouTube. There's some international haters.
Actually,
I think.
as a religiously affiliated school, you probably do have some sort of a connection to people from around the globe. We don't get outside the 713 all that often. That's all fine. That's fine.
Yeah, but this Cougar Blue, this powder blue, it's gonna catch on, and I think that's gonna get some international people.
So y'all have all kinds of when I think of Baylor in the last 20 years, I don't think I've seen them wear the same thing twice. Is this not is that an intimidating factor? Is coming into a blue out game for the university? Does that do anything to Baylor? Or is it not a big deal?
Probably not a big deal, but from a fan standpoint, when you see that, we debuted the anthracite uniforms this year, which are really blackout uniforms, and it was the first time in years that we had them. And so there's some hype there. There's some juice from the crowd and the players. It really is kind of a look good, play good situation. So, there's something there, right?
I'm hoping for it. I'm also, my other question, I'm sorry to steal the air at the start of the show. You guys are already bowl eligible, so you're really gonna sit most of these guys, right? You don't want to hurt anyone before the bowl game.
Yeah. Really don't want to put anyone in harm's way. They could be staying up late because it's a night game. We don't want to mess with the sleep patterns. Yeah, I think that's probably Dave Aranda's call to action this weekend. Is just hey, let's get some of the other guys some time, some shine here. Although, I am irrationally worried, Parker, because the next two games, the last two games, the regular season, are against both against teams with 6 losses. And I've been saying this all week. Normally people will be like, oh, great. 10 games into the season, you are facing two teams with sub 500 records. But I'm like, no, this is the Big 12. Their backs are against it. And I root for Baylor. So it's been that is such a point of nervousness this whole week.
Yeah. I think there is some back against the wall aspect to Houston too, especially after dropping an egg on the ground against Arizona last weekend, right? Houston's got to win the next two to get bowl eligibility, and weirdly feels like they could. BYU stumbled last weekend, and it all comes down to they have to beat Baylor to even make that one matter, right? And so I'm sure you're going to get a lot of stops from that end of things. But you said you're actually worried. I didn't know that was going to be coming out today.
Well, irrationally worried. Worried. Are they the same thing? I don't know. I do. I feel good about this game for Baylor, just because, and it's more an us thing than a you thing. I know I've heard that plenty during breakups and such, but I just feel really good about how Baylor's playing right now, and it almost doesn't matter who's on the other side. Because again, going back to this Big 12 thing, I think if we played BYU this weekend, we'd beat them. I think even Colorado, who is playing better than BYU right now, and we've lost 2 as well. I think we could line up and play them and beat them this weekend. And maybe even Oregon, I think, is a toss-up at this point with how Baylor's playing. But I have confidence, and I think for the first time, Baylor fans really have confidence, because even through this win streak, it was oh, maybe you just got lucky against Tech. Well, Oklahoma State's desperate. They get a bowl streak. Then you beat Oklahoma State. It's well, we've only beaten TCU once in the last decade. Beat TCU. And then it's well, you've never won in Morgantown. So it's it's almost again, you could line up against Penn State or Ohio State right now, and Baylor fans would feel pretty good. They'd be like, you know what? I give us a shot at this.
So that's what's interesting to me is that I kind of I'm sure my listeners and I, Baylor's had a crazy season, as you're trying to outline here.
Yeah.
Like getting to this point where they have 6 wins, 2 months ago would have been laughable. Like just like we were laughing on the Big 12 squad shows about being at the bottom of the conference and when's basketball season started and all that. Like that wasn't that long ago. And now we're walking to this one. Y'all are bowl eligible. Houston's trying to win the last 2 to get there. Obviously, there's a little bit different situations, but that's a very different spot than we thought we were going to be in 2 months ago or whenever the squad show started, right? Like that's not really the season for y'all. Like how's that? The roller coaster, has it all been highs? There's got to have been a couple lows.
Definitely some lows. I mean, it was not long ago though. We were on that Big 12 squad asking how many days till basketball, like and planning this thing out. And I've said this kind of all season long of like, so 2-4 is what it was after the loss to Iowa State. They lost by 3 touchdowns to Iowa State. It was not really competitive after the first quarter. It got away from them pretty quick. And it was like, oh boy, like how does this team get to bowl eligibility at this point? Like they won 3 games last year. They're 2-4 now. How do you just rattle off something like 4-2? And after that, they're 4-0. It was a situation where I think Baylor fans who watched every game knew like this team is different from last year, but like, when are they going to show it? Like when is that actually going to happen? And we needed to see it once. And it really felt like that win against Tech in Lubbock, 59-35. And it really wasn't that close. It was like, okay, now we have seen it. Now we've seen what this team is capable of. Either we're going to go on a run here or it's going to look even worse for Dave Aranda and co because we know what this team can do. And this would mean that they hadn't done it. And it has just been a ride ever since. I mean, it has been this stretch has been the funnest stretch to be a Baylor fan in 3 years. When they won the Sugar Bowl and won the Big 12 championship. I mean, this is a real high right now to the point where people are saying like, I wish we could get these early season games back. I wish we had started Sawyer Robertson week 1. I wish Bryson Washington was healthy week 1. And maybe this is a team that's looking at, I don't know, like potentially knocking on the door of 10-2 rather than trying to get to 8-4. So that's certainly been the case for us. And I know there was plenty of optimism after the TCU win after back-to-back shutouts, but that was about a month ago, a little over a month ago now. And then there was some confidence after the Kansas State win. I think the Coug season has been more of like a true roller coaster. We started down and went up, but this feels like a roller coaster here.
Definitely highs and lows. It's been interesting because Houston, for the folks at Baylor maybe hadn't followed it that closely, Houston's played like crap after bye weeks. Both bye weeks that come out and laid big eggs against very beatable teams. Arizona last week and a few weeks before that against a bad Kansas team. I guess Kansas won a few games since, so it sounds awkward to say bad, but both teams, both teams like preseason would have been ranked pretty high and then had disappointing seasons. Coincidentally, both had lost 5 in a row before playing Houston. And then Houston came out of bye weeks and was unable to really do anything against either program. And then they haul off and beat the TCUs and Kansas States, the world. Everyone's beating up on Utah. That one looks less and less impressive as things go on. But
well, we didn't get to beat them, but that was Cam was in there for half the game, so I don't feel like that.
You
counts.
Actually had to play Cam Rising. That's true. I guess that's the deal. Is the thought is that okay, in a regular routine game week, do things shift back towards that median of the season? It's been all defensive year though. You alluded to a couple shutouts. There have been 3 games that Houston did not score a touchdown in, and then one they scored a garbage time touchdown against the third string UNLV team. And so it's really been like the defense keeping people under 20. That's been the path thus far.
All right, let's get into that. Let's get into this Houston defense because I talked about it on my show yesterday. It is a big part of the success that you guys have had this year. So let's get into that next on this Locked On crossover. Are you far away from a loved one this Christmas season and wanting to let them know that they are on your mind? Well, do I have the gift for you? It's called Skylight Frames. It is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. You can upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. So easy to use. It takes like a minute to set it up. You can invite friends and family to share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or through email. Only takes a tap on your phone and you can send new photos to a frame across the country. It is the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop. They will feel more connected to you. Trust me, they will. And that touchscreen, that's a game changer. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/COLLEGE. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/college. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you're going to be able to check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You're getting started with under $50 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Defense is the name of the game, I've been told. Offense wins games, defense wins championships. So I'm expecting a championship soon here for these Houston Cougs because this has been a pretty good defensive unit. I mean, top 5 in a lot of the major categories in the Big 12. And Parker, in my research for this, I was like, I changed it. Okay, let's go from overall stats to conference only stats. And they're still right up there at the top. Like, it hasn't been much of a change. This should be 2 defensive geniuses going after it. With Dave Aranda and Willie Fritz. Aranda's defense has given up 28 or more points every game since week 3. And Houston has been pretty stout defensively. So is this the Willie Fritz magic?
Fritz magic. Fritzmas came early. No, I think that the deal with the defense has been bluntly, they got some small school transfers to step up to the Big 12, and they've seemingly all panned out. And I don't mean that to be like some of that's just luck, right? Some of that's rolling dice and hitting. You can go into player evaluations and scouting or whatever, but like they bring up Keith Cooper came from Tulane with Willie Fritz. I think that guy's playing on Sundays next year. He's a tremendous defensive lineman. Frankly, demands a double team most of the game. AJ Halsey, I guess, transferred in from New Mexico the year prior. But that dude, I mean, he feels like a nice 2004, 1998 kind of strong safety that really wants to like take people's heads off. He's gotten a couple penalties for it, but we'll be okay. They just got a bunch of guys like that though, that resume from before. Houston linebacker Michael Batten's been to like 7 schools, like just guys that have just been around and around and around, and you're just like, oh, this just finally clicking here. They were ready for Big 12 football all at once.
That's kind of like Willie Fritz in a way, right? Like Willie in his 60s, he's coached for a long time. These guys have played a lot of football. It might have been different areas, different levels.
Michael Batten's old, but he's not in his 60s. Like, chill out.
Well, sure. I guess. We'll get a double check on that.
but yeah, it's a lot like that. Fritz, for the folks that the Baylor folks maybe don't know, he's been a high winning coach at a lot of different levels of football, most recently at Tulane, but he was at Sam Houston. He was at Blinn. He was in Central Missouri. He's done a bunch of winning at a bunch of places. Willis High School. Yeah. Actually, there actually are more Baylor connections to Willis High School than I had initially thought of when you brought that up. Yeah, no, he was at Willis High School at the early part of that. And he finally gets to his chance at Big 12 Power 4 football, right? And he said a big part of that was it was a Big 12 Power 4 job in a region he knew. Again, doing all the work in Tulane, Sam Houston, Blinn, Willis, etc. Like this is kind of his backyard, and he's stoked to turn around. I will say that there's like something in the air with him. I have to be honest. I don't think many rational people had a whole lot of faith in this season. It was more like, hey, this is like setting the stones for future seasons. The fact that they're, again, 2 wins away from being able to go to a bowl with 2 games left, like these games still matter in a way that I don't think people anticipated. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be a part of. I got it while talking coaches.
Please.
The most surprising thing that happened to me last offseason was not Houston firing Dana Holgorsen. It was Baylor not firing Dave Aranda, because I was like, well, if Houston beat Baylor in Waco and they fired their coach, what does that mean about the coach who won less games?
Yeah.
And here we're sitting, y'all have won more games this year with the old guy.
Yeah, man. And in a funny way, both these teams took gambles on coaches and it's worked out, right? Houston has not clinched the bowl yet, but like you say, I mean, there's an air about him and there's things going in the right direction. Because I want to say about Willie first, is like, this is the year of the old coach in new places. College football has been obsessed the last like decade and a half, since I've been watching really intently, of the young guy, right? And if he's not young, he's not good enough. And here we got Willie Fritz turning things around at UH, because all he does is win everywhere he's been. And the other one, Kurt Signetti, up at Indiana, Google him, man. All he's done is won, and he's 60, and so people don't want him. And Indiana's like, okay, we haven't had a winning football team ever, so we'll take a flyer, and it's working big time. And so that's the risk that's worked out for Houston so far. And for Baylor, it's worked out with the 6-4 record and the announcement over the weekend that they're sticking with Dave Aranda. I mean, I was not someone who was like, hey, let's give this guy another chance. I thought he was going to be fired last year. And I did. I wanted him to be fired last year, the way that season bottomed out. He brought a binder to Mac Rhodes, who you're familiar with, of course. He's brings a binder to him before the last game and lays out a plan of like, hey, here's what we got to do better. We got to hit NIL better, transfer portal. We got to get our recruiting better too. And we'll get rid of this OC, Jeff Grimes. We'll bring in another one. I'll start calling the defense. And it has worked. It has worked big time. Now, the defense is not a patented Dave Aranda defense the way they're playing right now, but bringing in Jake Spavital has been a stroke of genius. And this offense is just clicking on all cylinders. They're averaging over 47 a game in their 4-game winning streak. Like, the teams cannot stop them right now. And so, and they have a top 3 recruiting class in the Big 12 for 2025. So all those things he said, he's brought in impact transfers. He went out and spent big NIL for what was one of the top quarterbacks in the portal. The irony is that he is not the guy right now, and they found their quarterback who was already on the team, but he's backed up those commitments so far. And I think that made it an easy decision for Baylor once he hit bowl eligibility to say, okay, it's time to bring him back. And is he going to win Big 12 Coach of the Year? Probably not, but this has been so far so good on giving Dave Aranda the other year. But I think a lot of it's got to do with the quarterback, Sawyer Robertson, man.
Well, I was going to ask about that because I would probably give, if I had a vote for Coach of the Year, to Sataki at BYU. It's probably more like what I know about Baylor's past, more so. But this Sawyer Robertson kid was on campus last year.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like what?
This is a fascinating.
How did this
story.
happen? What is it? How he's been this good the whole time? What happened there?
So, fascinating story with Sawyer Robertson is he comes out of high school as like a legit 4, almost 5-star by all the grading metrics.
Was it Ole Miss or Mississippi State? It was an SEC school, and I should know that.
Mississippi State. Lubbock kid, played for Mike Leach. And like, world gets turned upside down. One day Mike Leach is at practice, and the next he's gone. And
rest in peace, very literally.
Yeah. And he's like, got to go find somewhere else to go. He goes to Baylor, and I've had his high school coach on the show. I've commentated games against Seth Parr, so I know what kind of offense he runs. And it's the kind they're running now at Baylor, but very decidedly not the one they were running last year. They were running the wide zone with Jeff Grimes, which you guys saw with KU. And it's like, really? This kid wants to play in this offense? And Blake Shapen gets hurt early in the season. He gets thrown into the fire. He's playing hurt, and it doesn't look great. And they go out and they go and get the MAC Player of the Year, DeQuan Finn, in the portal, and they duke it out all preseason long, and Finn gets named the starter. And he gets an injury in that second game of the year. Sawyer's got to start game 3, and this has now become a Brady Bledsoe thing. Like, he has not looked back. He has been one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, nay, the country, since then, in the last, 7 weeks here. He's revolutionized this offense. This is a kid who has not won a quarterback battle in college, has not won one. Got his spot here due to injury, and he is not looking back. He is poised. He is calm. He has a great deep ball. He takes care of the football for as much as a gunslinger can. And he has been like the number one on the field reason that Baylor is at where they are at right now. Like, no doubt.
Houston's done a quarterback change, but it hasn't gone that well. I'd love to ask you in the third segment recommendations how to make sure it does shift in that direction, because I've loved Zion. I would not call him the best quarterback in America in the last 7 weeks. He's been good. He's been fun. But I think we should talk about he's made some plays. I got questions about the Baylor defense, though, because you said it's not an Aranda group, and I think those tie together in the next segment.
Yes, let's do that. Let's talk Zion. Let's talk both these team defenses, because you said something in your show yesterday that I want to get to as well about the Cougs defense. Let's do it next on this Locked On crossover. May I take a moment to tell you about a sponsor of today's video? That's Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in North America. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you do is just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long. And it is the best way to get an action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and the greatest one of them all, the great state of Texas. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If that player leaves, doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. They put their numbers first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, this happens really sometimes, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. It actually happens a lot because this is so easy to do, to be honest with you guys. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts. Things like Taco Tuesday, where each Tuesday Prize Picks discounts players, select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So you think someone like Justin Jefferson is going to get more than 83.5 yards this week? Probably. Lamar Jackson going to throw more than 1.5 touchdowns? Probably. Or you can cook up some hot takes with your friends and win real money in this football season in the Run Your Game on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Let me say that again for dramatic effect. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDON, COLLEGE, to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Zion.
What a name.
It's a great name. I mean, that's a baller name right there, man.
If you're gonna be a fast quarterback, Zion's like zoom. There's something about it.
Zion's pretty good, and I watch the most I've watched of UH this year was pretty much that entire game against TCU. It was a bye week for high school football for us, so I got to watch that whole game.
It was a Friday night game.
Yes, and Zion, I'm like, have they found this? Like, is this it? You know, it's going to look raw right now, but this is a team that hasn't scored a point in 2 weeks. And here he is in Amon Carter just balling out. And it's kind of like Houston in general feels like it's been up and down since. So we know Donovan Smith from Tech days and also that final play at McLean last year.
If I were a gambler, you brought that one up, not me. I'd have lost that one.
Yep. We'll bring it up. Elephant in the room, Donovan Smith. That was a tough one. I was at a wedding having to watch that on my phone, and I was like, why do they do this to me? So no Donovan Smith. It's been Zion Chris. They were rotating, but it's been Zion for a while now. How is the How was the kind of retrospective now in week 10 of the season, week 11, whatever?
Yeah, I think when you think about the fact he's just a sophomore, it kind of adds more context because he is a young football player. You mentioned they were rotating him. I think the plan was to rotate them more in the first couple of weeks. Against UNLV in the opener, he kind of took a bad hit, and that delayed that a couple of games. They rotated in the Cincinnati game, and shut out. Neither quarterback could get in a rhythm, and then they walked into TCU saying they were going to rotate and started Zion and never looked back. That's not to say that they've scored 40 points a game or whatever, like you mentioned, but it's clearly an offense set up around a guy more like him. Short passes, you hope for long gains after, but a lot of running of the football. He is a fast. If Baylor fans have not watched it, he is very fast. Hit 22 miles an hour on a quarterback run. TCU game. He can roll.
That's like fastest guy of the week kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that's incredible. What I actually, what I've been impressed with Zion is because I looked up the stats this week just to get more of a picture of it, and the yards per throw have gone down after his 2 years at ULL. I guess we just call it University of Louisiana now. But he completes 66% of his passes.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about those guys who are dual threat, but incredible athletes. Like, that's the last thing to come around. I think of guys like Avery Johnson at Kansas State, or you actually saw Matthew Sluka this year before he left town at UNLV. And those guys are like typically completing between 55 to 60% of their passes. And once you get that 65 and above, that's okay. We got something here. We want to get it closer to 70, and that's going to lead the nation. And Sawyer Robertson is right around the same completion percentage. So it looks a little bit different, but he's taking care of the ball. He's not putting you behind the sticks in the passing game.
No, and the biggest complaint out of Houston folks is that the play calling is what puts them behind the sticks. So with the new coaching
behind the sticks, I needed to make sure I worded that correctly. Looking at some of the EPA stuff, they do get behind the sticks.
But the play calling I think has been the bigger thing there. Offense coordinator's a guy from Mississippi State named Kevin Barbay. He was at App State before that, and I think in his heart of hearts, Willie might admit that he was not the first choice to be the OC as they were building a new staff, but his Tulane OC stayed, right? And so he kind of had to scramble a little bit.
Sounds like us having Larry Fedora year one of Dave Aranda, and that was a disaster. Yeah.
Well, and there are plenty of people in the comments right now writing that this is a disaster, Cam. So I'm sure that they're telling us exactly that. I don't mean to give too much credit where credit's due. Part of the deal, I think, though, is that they didn't know what they were going to do with quarterback. Donovan missed a lot of the offseason hurt. He still, I think, is not 100% if you ask Donnie how he's feeling. Zion's a very different quarterback, so you got to kind of change things up and who goes where. But, I don't mean to give your defense coordinator too much of a heads up, but Houston will run the ball on 3rd and long just because why not?
All right. That's good. Baylor stunk against the pass. There we go. All right.
So you mentioned that he's like a 66% completion guy. They're only throwing it between like 12 and 15 times, 20 times a game max, right?
And they're not chucking it down the field, right? Like it's not going through 3 or 4 reads. It's fairly simple.
You mentioned y'all aren't good against the pass. How are you against the run?
pretty solid, Parker. I hate to break it to you. In fact, like I look at that, like College Football Insider's website and the EPA and everything, like their EPA against the pass is middle of the pack, like D1. So in like the 70s, and it's in the top 15 for the rush. So it might not feel like that at times for when we're watching it because they are giving up, 28 to 30 points a game, but it has been that effective. And speaking of the run, because you said this on your show yesterday, Parker, I've been looking at these stats. I'm like, my gosh, this is the best defense the Baylor's played since Iowa State. Is Houston going to be the team that slows them down? And you started talking about Bryson Washington. Someone's going to talk about him because the Big 12 is not going to give him Offensive Player of the Week. 8 touchdowns in the last 2 games.
I was impressed with the kid.
You said this is the kind of guy that this Houston defense has a lot of trouble with. Is that where you're at? Like, are you worried about that matchup in particular?
Yeah, because he can do a couple different stylistic things. He's not a one trick pony, right? So I feel like when they play guys they're gonna run between the guards and they're big A gaps and B gaps guys, they can just load that up, right? If they play a guy that he's more of a pass catching running back, they kind of know more what they're doing with him there. Maybe it's just a couple games I watched. I did watch the Tech game. I thought that it looked like to me that he could do a lot of different things, and having to one running back do a lot of different things presents problems because you can't quite get your personnel quite. It always feels like you're like, oh, if only, we didn't quite have the right guy, the right nose tackle in or whatever, right? And so, very personnel based Houston Cougar team. And having a versatile guy can present a problem. Do you think I'm off on that? I'd be happily wrong.
No, I mean, I think you're right. And what's impressed me about Bryson Washington is he feels like he's getting more versatile by the week. I said a few weeks ago when they played Oklahoma State, it actually wasn't a great matchup for him, even though Oklahoma State's not good against the run, because they just kind of freelance. That Oklahoma State team is kind of freelance out there. And so the hole's not there right away, but it gets there. And Bryson is a hit the hole guy. And Dawson Pendergrass, the other back, is one that's more patient, and Pendergrass had the great game. But I think we've seen some more patience from Bryson Washington, and we've seen more pass catching. I mean, he caught a touchdown last week that was like a sick play. I mean, he didn't see it till the last second. He's running a seam, and he makes a great play on the ball. So he's been able to give them big plays in the pass game, which I didn't think we were expecting from a kid who is a power back from a slot T offense in high school, of which he was playing 2 years ago. It's not like he's a fifth year guy. He was playing high school football 2 years ago. So I think obviously he will get a heavy dose still this week. The balance of this offense has been what's real impressive to me. They showed it last week against a team that's pretty stout against the run. They were a very balanced attack, and Bryson still had, 4 touchdowns, 3 of them on the ground. So, and 4 touchdowns total for the Bears on the ground.
He's only listed at 205. I would have sworn before pulling it up, he's closer to 220. I don't know why he looks bigger to me than he is.
It feels like it. He plays like it. That's for sure. Okay.
I was surprised. Anyway, yeah.
So are the defenses, for sure. So are the outside linebackers. All right. So Houston, the underdogs in this one. I think it's 7.5 last I checked. What is it going to take? Like, what has to go right for the Cougs to pull off the upset?
Low scoring. We're talking in the teens, first team to 20 wins kind of thing. Low scoring, and probably need to win the turnover battle to keep it there, frankly, because Baylor's offense has been electric for a little over a month now, right? So you're thinking if you can, get a pick here, force the fumble there, and kind of keep the because Houston's going to control the ground game and going to waste clock. They might, get 2 yards in a cloud of dust, but they're going to spend a lot of clock on offense doing that. And so if they can keep the ball, possess the ball, and keep Baylor out of the end zone and keep this in the teens, you could see Houston winning like a 17-14 like they did against Kansas State, or a 21-17 kind of thing. I don't think that's Baylor's path to victory, if I'm being honest. So it's going to be very much the styles make fights kind of thing to me. And we're going to probably know by halftime which of those styles is making the fight, right? I mean, that's the way it goes.
That's the thing, is someone in that halftime locker room will be like, oh boy, this is not going the way that it needs to go for us. Yeah, I mean, Baylor can afford to turn this into a track meet, which they couldn't do early in the season, but it's so cliche, but it's rung really true the last few weeks. Their best defense has been their offense, and it worked to a T against West Virginia last week. Because again, they didn't play glistening defensively, but they kept scoring, and West Virginia couldn't stop them. So all of a sudden, you take them out of their game. They can't run the ball. They've got to go for it on 4th down, and you force Garrett Green to go 19 of 39, and they missed 2 4th down plays in the second half. So you make plays on 4th down, you force them into a pick as well, and the game is over. So yeah, Baylor's going to want this to not be in the teens. They would like this to be in the 30s and preferably the 40s. So I guess we will reserve score predictions.
Houston's broke 30 twice, and one time they had 30, and when the other time was against Rice. If we're in the 30s, we got a problem. Don't tell me that.
I don't even mean this as a dig, because I do like the things that Willie's done there this year, and kind of what we talked about, and laying something of a foundation and better than what it was supposed to be this year. But at any turn, you can say, we're not Rice. And that rocks. And by the way, these powder blues are going to look way better than that stuff that Rice tried last year.
Way better. And for what it's worth,
brutal.
the last guy lost to Rice. So you're already better. You're already better.
There you go. There you go. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Cougs. I'm Cam Stewart for Locked On Baylor. I've already made you commit to it. We're gonna give score predictions in tomorrow's show, so you have to do it. Sorry, Parker. And we will see you at our respective channels after the game, and we'll be back because both these schools do play basketball.
They do
at a quite high level. So
fun
Parker,
basketball.
Parker, thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. And let's just hope both teams have fun on Saturday, huh?
Yeah, just have fun. Have fun.
All right. Thanks for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you tomorrow on Locked On Cougs and Locked On Baylor.